All right, welcome to a special edition of the Fifth Down Show. Of course, as everybody knows, we took a season-long break. We needed to break it up a little bit. We'll get more into that as we go here, but we are kicking off our revamp, as I call it, just getting back into the swing of things, but you know the Super Bowl. You know that Fifth Down is going to cover it. If you've been with us for the last 7 years, you know it's one of the events we love to cover. And of course, whenever the 49ers are involved, you know Fifth Down is going to bring you our boy Niners faithful to come on and break down the 49ers, break down everything that happened in the game, everything that happened this season, and more importantly than a recap of everything, it's going to be really the crux of this is not just the 49ers played in the Super Bowl, but what happens next for the 49ers. That's the most important thing that's on everybody's mind. Of course, Niners Faithful will break it down in his great way when he joins us on the show. So we will be getting to all of that. Again, I just want to say, as we always do, we have the link in the description on there. If at any point you want to hop on, join the discussion, the link is in the chat. Just throw it in. We'll get you on. As always, comment, like, subscribe, do all that stuff, and get us going here. As I said, this is our revamp. I'll get more into that down the road when we start doing other things. But for today, we're just going to talk about the Super Bowl. And for the Super Bowl, I got to say, for the game, you know, it's funny, these games that we've had, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is only the second game to go to overtime. These overtime Super Bowl games, while everybody says, oh my God, it was so exciting, it was overtime, these games haven't been exciting. These overtime games have not been exciting in a way that I'll tell you right now, there's not a play from this Super Bowl that I looked at and went, wow. There isn't a memorable play from this Super Bowl that is going to last the end of time. You know, there's no Jerry Rice going 80 yards. There's no Mark Bavaro catching the ball in the end zone in Super Bowl 25. There's no Scott Norwood wide left from in my opinion. I'll state it out there, and anybody can argue with me. You can argue with me all you want. Super Bowl 25, the greatest Super Bowl of all time. It was the most fun. It was back and forth. It was the way that went. For this Super Bowl, even though it was close, even though it came down, I really felt like it didn't become a game until about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That's when the teams started playing like they wanted to play, like they were meant to be there. It really took them a long time to get into this. And we can talk about why that is. We can speculate why that happens, but it seems to be happening more and more as we go on. It seems like these games are one team, these teams take a while to feel each other out. You can go back to last year with Chiefs Eagles. It took a while for that game to get going. Once it did, it was good. But it took a long time to get going. You know, one of the biggest ones that reminds me is, and this is why I said at the beginning that there isn't a memorable. You know, I remember people talking about the Rams Patriots Super Bowl from a few years ago. The defensive struggle that everybody said, oh, it was so boring. It was so boring. It was so boring. It was low scoring. And yet, I was enthralled with that Super Bowl. There were so many big plays in that Super Bowl. I can remember Devin McCourty coming out of nowhere to knock Brandon Cooks out of the end zone. That play is still stuck in my mind every time I think about think about a Super Bowl, not just that Super Bowl, but when I think about the Super Bowl coming up and I think about great plays, that Devin McCourty play is right there. I don't. If you've got one, give it to me. But I don't have a play in this Super Bowl that I can go back to and go, that's the defining play of this Super Bowl. There wasn't one. It was really, and that's not to say it was a bad game. It was a well-played game. There was, we don't have, the greatest thing about this Super Bowl is we don't have to talk about, well, the refs did this or, a coaching decision that did that. There's none of that in this Super Bowl. There's nothing really to break down in this Super Bowl. There's really nothing to go, well, this cost them the game or this did that or there's none of that. And that's what I mean when I say this Super Bowl was uneventful. Yes, it went to overtime. Yes, it had the 49ers scoring in overtime. Yes, it had the Chiefs driving back down the field. And we'll talk about that with Niners Faithful because I did say there was a coach. I think there was one major decision that the 49ers made that changed the course of this game. And we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it when Niners Faithful comes on. And speaking of, here he is, the man of the hour. Let's bring him in, the 49ers fan extraordinaire. TJ, how you doing, Niners Faithful? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. Obviously, wish it was under better circumstances.
Hey, like I was just saying in the preview, dude. You couldn't have asked your team to play any way else.
I mean, it's okay. So, obviously gutted. It was funny because I went outside. I want to say it's when we kicked the field goal to take the lead, and they kicked the field goal back. During that drive, when we scored our first touchdown, I was actually outside smoking a cigarette. Then I went back inside because I figured, we've been shutting them down defensively. Let me go ahead and go outside. Fumble happens, everything happens. So during that drive, I had told myself, okay, if we start to struggle, I'll go outside. And I kept on telling myself, one more play. Well, the play before they kicked the field goal to tie it, and I believe that's ultimately what sent it to overtime. Is when I went outside. They stopped them. They kicked the field goal. So I remained outside majority of the fourth quarter, definitely all of those. So I'm smoking cigarettes, watching it on my phone, listening to it on my radio. I remember we kicked the field goal to take the lead. I said to myself, okay, one last stop, you're Super Bowl champion. It really came down to, can you stop them going 75 yards or not? I had full confidence until they got to the 4-yard line. The play before the touchdown, that's when I started to feel like, because even as they were driving, I was like, okay, hold them to a field goal. We come back, we get the ball, we have a chance to win. That's why ultimately, if you ask me my opinion, I'm conflicted because I had no problem with Kyle Shanahan, the head coach in this game. The only question, only this head coaching decision I questioned in the Super Bowl was going for it on fourth down. They ultimately gave us that last touchdown to take the lead, and they march up. We missed the extra point. They tie it. I thought you should kick the field goal to tie the game there. I think if we don't make that fourth down to Kittle, I think that goes down as one of the stupidest coaching decisions in Super Bowl history. But ultimately, it didn't matter. We scored the touchdown, take the lead. They blocked the extra point, whatever.
That's an interesting point, and I like that you brought that up. I thought you were going somewhere else with the coaching decision because I have a coaching decision that wasn't on the field, but it did cost you guys the game, and I want to get your thoughts since we're already on the overtime situation. You You guys won the toss, right?
Yes.
The coaching decision you guys made that cost you the game was taking the ball. And here's why. Let me give you my reason why, and then I'll let you respond, because here's why I would not have taken the ball on the opening kickoff. First off, you're going against Pat Mahomes. I know you want to score, and we all know they changed the rules now, so it's not, hey, you score first, the game's over. The rules are, even if you score a touchdown, the other team has a chance to drive back down the field. Here's the problem, though. If you don't score a touchdown and you kick a field goal like the 49ers did, now your defense has to stop Pat Mahomes on 4 downs instead of 3. You see, if you kick the ball to them first and you stop them on 3 downs, they have a decision to make whether they punt the ball to you or not. If they get in field goal range, they have a decision. They might kick a field goal. If they know, hey, a field goal does nothing for us, or hey, it's 4th and 3. Hey, we could kick a field goal, but it's 4th and 3. Let's go for the game. You got to stop Pat Mahomes 4 straight downs. And as good as the 49ers defense is, Pat Mahomes, you give him the more chances you give him, the more chances he has to break you. And that's why when they won the toss, I said, oh, they got to kick it. They got to kick the ball. They got to play defense first. And they went on the offense, and we saw what happened. The Chiefs got the ball, first down, 3rd down. They weren't even thinking about they were in 4-down mode the entire time. And that's scary to me. That was scary to me. So that was the decision I thought that really cost them the game was, we'll take the ball, and you allow that offense to do. So I'll let you respond to that aspect of the game.
See, and I agree with you. Ultimately, my co-host agrees with you. The way I look at it is, Kyle, when he explained it, he said, we wanted the ball served. Ideally, you have to have the confidence that you're going to score a touchdown there. Let's be real. Both defenses were gassed. Can we all agree on that? At that point, both defenses are gassed.
Absolutely.
I'm okay with sitting there saying, hey, we go down here, we score a touchdown, they match us, or at least essentially have to match us, and then cool, you get the ball again, saying we kick a field goal, ball game, we're Super Bowl champions. Ultimately, I think what the issue happened and how things unfolded was not scoring the touchdown. That was the problem, because then you give Patrick Mahomes the ball with a chance to win the game. And that's ultimately, you could ask me what scared me the most, because periodically I never really felt like the Niners were going to lose this game. I wasn't 1,000% confident we weren't going to win it. Ultimately, what scared me the most is going up only 10-3 at halftime when our defense dominated. The thing that scared me most is, funny enough, I felt confident offensively. Defensively is what scared me. I was scared of it more being are they going to be up 13-3 at halftime? So not being up more than 7 points at halftime, ultimately, when you give, I said this in the Green Bay game. When Green Bay took the lead right before we ended up winning it on that final drive, I remember texting the group I have, everybody that works on the podcast, and I said, when you give a team an opportunity, when one score changes the game or wins the game, this is what happens. Ultimately, where did the Niners lose this game? By giving Patrick Mahomes an opportunity with one score to take the lead or tie the ball game. That's where we lost the game.
I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you, and that's why I love having you come on, because it gives a 49ers fan perspective. As my perspective of just watching the game and having no vested interest at all, other than hey, I want to see a good game. Um, the one thing, another thing, I think where the 49ers and we can say this because they essentially lost the game, but where they lost the game, and I don't know. I don't know. I was not in Kyle Shanahan's prep. I was not in his coaching meetings. I don't have any of that. Okay, where I think they lost this game, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but where I think they lost the game might have been Friday night before the game, because it felt to me like you knew the biggest weapon the 49ers have had all year is Christian McCaffrey. CMC, come on. It felt like he was non-existent in the Super. It felt like he was non-existent in the Super Bowl, and it felt like when he was existent, he made impact plays happen. And then it felt like they went away. It felt like they went away from him. Now I don't know if that was the Chiefs taking him away, or with looks or whatever, but it just felt like the 49ers gave up on him until they said, "Oh crap, we need a play. Christian, go do something for us."
Okay, so right here I have the second and third quarter. Ultimately, this is the Niners' third quarter. 3 plays, minus 1 yard. Punt. Basically, going into halftime, you got pick, which is, I honestly think, not going up 17-3 there. You know, I said that Patrick Mahomes just hand us this ball game. We go up 17-3 there. I think it's ball game. I think our inability, you know, we can break down plenty of things in this football game. Our inability to score off of turnovers. When Pacheco fumbled in the red zone, I was like, that's the type of thing that costs you Super Bowls. I said the same thing with CMC when he fumbled in the red zone. You got punt. They take the field goal. Punt. They kick the punt, which we fumble. They recover it. 1 play touchdown. Once they scored that touchdown, it wasn't even necessarily, I thought, oh my God, the Niners are going to lose. I thought you just gave them the worst thing that you could do. You gave them hope. You gave Patrick Mahomes belief. And then after that, it was a ball game. It was essentially a shootout. Even though the score doesn't say that, it's essentially a shootout.
It was like I said in the opening, and I don't know if you heard my opening, but it was like I said, it was like these teams waited till, and like you just said, it waited till about probably like 5 minutes before the fourth quarter before they started playing. I mean, it was that's kind of how it was. This kind of felt like, and I'll put this in another sports realm. This felt like it felt like a Floyd Mayweather. It felt like a Floyd Mayweather fight, where everybody was kind of just playing. Everybody was kind of just playing defense. Nobody was really doing anything. Nobody was really throwing haymakers until they finally said, "Oh wait, I need to score points here. I need to get into this match," and then it started becoming a game. That's how it felt to me.
Kansas City scored their first touchdown with 4 seconds left in the third quarter. That's essentially what I felt. So you did essentially say the fourth quarter and overtime is when this started becoming a ball game. So people ask me, do you feel the Chiefs outplayed the Niners? No. I essentially think that we were the dominant team in the first and second half. I believe the third quarter was pretty even. I guess you've got to give it to Kansas City because they technically scored more points than us in the third quarter. And the fourth quarter was a wash, and then ultimately it came down to the final 2 drives. But this is why I said, look, what cost us the game was Kyle Shanahan, the offensive play caller. That's just how I personally felt. What ultimately you could say what lost us the game was Kyle Shanahan, the play caller. where we lost, I put it on the defense. I just looked it up right now. Kansas City's final drive, 13 plays, 75 yards. In 13 plays, you can't get a turnover. You can't get a sack. You can't get, they had multiple 4th and 1s, or a 4th and 1, a 3rd and 6, 3rd and 1. So I look at it, and even though I feel that the defense played phenomenally, I have never seen fluke things like what happened to Dre Greenlaw in my life. And I've been watching football over 30 years. I've never seen anybody hopping up and down the sideline, take a step, and then have their Achilles snapped. I've never seen that in my life.
Oh, that was so devastating. When I saw that, and everybody, I saw it right away. I went, "Oh my god!" And everybody I was watching they were looking at the play, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "I'm watching the injury. I didn't even see what happened on the rest of the play." I went, "Oh my god!" That was devastating. And they're like, "What happened? He didn't even get touched." I go, "That's the problem. Nobody touched him."
When they said he took a step and collapsed, I said, "It's his Achilles."
Mm-hmm.
He had already had Achilles tendonitis throughout the year. He had been battling at the end of the season and throughout the playoffs.
That's the worst. That's the worst way for him to go. I mean, and God bless him, and hope for a recovery. But that's one of the worst injuries you could ever have.
Yeah, they said successful surgery. Hope for plans is he's supposed to come around September. So that's what I look. I look at my defense, and obviously as we transition to the future of the Niners now, this is where I look at Steve Wilks. Did I believe that Steve Wilks coached a good game? I believe he coached a phenomenal first half. Do I believe Steve Wilks did a good enough job for us to win the Super Bowl? Considering as somebody who watched every second of every game, yeah, this is kind of about what our defense looked like throughout the year. We had problems adjusting in the second half all year. We go into the soft zone cover. I mean, it was everything. The Super Bowl turned out exactly how I pretty much thought it would be, minus the fact I thought that the third quarter was where the Niners would start to take over. I thought this is where we wear them down. The third quarter, we'd start running CMC, running Debo. That's where I thought everything else pretty much turned out the way I thought it would. So,
you just hit right into my next point. So I'm gonna cut you off there. I'm gonna cut you off there because I want you to expand on this. The two guys that I put this on as we're talking about, who to put fault on, and as I said in the game, there's nobody to really put on. There's no play to point to like, that's the play. He should have done this. There was none of that in this game. So that's why you kind of have to abstract this. The two things I would have to say is, one, Chase Young disappeared. Just absolutely disappeared. Yeah. His disappearing he was phenomenal early. And
I said Chase Young going to win Super Bowl MVP that first half.
And he disappeared in the second. He had a disappearing act in the second half, and we can put that on a lot of people. I mean, we know Nick Bosa. We know he was double teamed the entire game. That's why it's on Chase Young, because Chase Young had one-on-one opportunities all game long and should have. But the more important thing that you just touched on is, where the hell did Deebo Samuel go? Where did why Kyle Shanahan did not get him? And this is on, and I put this on Kyle Shanahan because he's the play caller. You have a guy like Deebo, you have a guy like CMC. When CMC's not getting the ball, Deebo should be getting the ball. And Deebo's the kind of guy that you get him the ball early and he's able to play. He's one of those guys, if you don't get him the ball early, he fades into the background, and so they should have gotten him the ball early, whether it's a screen, and it's not that hard to get him the ball. Screens, jet sweeps, anything to put the ball in his hand. They didn't do any of that. Go ahead.
In my response to you, Chris, I'm going to take it a couple of weeks back. I'm going to take it to the NFC Championship game. Do you know when the NFC Championship game changed? Do you know when I really felt like, okay, maybe we can pull this off? Is when Greg Papa, who's the Niners play-by-play announcer, noticed that Debo had went up to Kyle and said something to him. And Kyle gave him a huge smack on the ass and said, and, you know, obviously, like, let's go, you know, kind of energy. And literally, the next offensive series, Debo took the ball game over. I feel that's why I told you, Kyle Shanahan, the head coach, didn't cost us this game. Kyle Shanahan, the play caller, cost us this game. Because, yes, even though I just said, hey, look, don't allow them to go 13 plays and 75 yards, yeah, that's how I look at that individual game. But when I step back and I look at the 2023 49ers, I was very critical. Super Bowl 54, I put that on the defense. I said, don't give up 21 unanswered points. You know what this offense was this year. I look at the offense this year, and I say, score more than 22 points. You know what this defense is. I said, go back, check the tape. All season, I said, this is not the 2019 defense. This ain't the 2022 defense. Our defense regressed this year. And so ultimately, we know that. Kyle's not stupid. Kyle knows what's up. Kyle knows our defense. So I ultimately put on it because I say, look, I was quite impressed with that Kansas City secondary. I thought, you know, their D-line versus our O-line were going to be some issues, but I thought ultimately our CMC, you know, running the football and our receivers were going to be issues. I believe that's where ultimately that's where Kansas City won this game, was 90 seconds on our receivers. But I put that on Kyle. You know, I think, Kyle, you're supposed to be the best offensive play caller this franchise has seen since Bill Walsh. I genuinely believe that in my heart of hearts. You cannot scheme a game plan that comes up with more than 22 points, 0 points off of turnovers. Chris, we get 10 points off of those turnovers, even 7 points. Shit, even 6 points. 2 field goals off of their 60 seconds. We win the Super Bowl.
And it's not like we're talking. And I totally agree with you. And I'm going to bolster your point here. It's not like we're talking about playing the 2000 Ravens defense here. We're not talking about playing. We're not talking about playing Bill Belichick, a defensive schemer. We're not talking about playing any of those guys. You know, we were talking about playing the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a team that gave up 30 points to the Bills, a team that gave up, you know, they gave up, they did play a great defensive game against the Ravens, but they gave up a ton of yards against the Ravens in the AFC Championship game. So it's not like we're talking about an all-time great defense here. And again, I think it just came down to the 49ers. They just didn't use their they didn't use their weapon. They didn't, all the weapons they had, they just didn't use. It was
look, Chris, sorry.
No, you're good.
For the ad.
No, you're good. Like I said, like I was saying, Juwan Johnson, for all the great things that Juwan Jennings does, he can't be your leading receiver. He can't be.
No, he can't.
You had to have put that on, you know, Kittle, on Ayuk, on Debo, on CMC catching balls out of the backfield. They relied so much on, they're taking these guys away, so we're going to go to the underneath guys. Well, that's not what you've done to get there. To get there, you relied on your big dogs, and it seemed like they didn't in this game. Since we're overtime on Blog Talk, and we're going to continue. We're going to continue on YouTube because that's what we do until they kick us off. I just want to get your final thoughts on the Super Bowl, and then we'll have a short discussion of Where do the 49ers go from here? Because that's the important part. But we'll wrap the Super Bowl up. So what were your final thoughts on the Super Bowl?
Final thoughts on the Super Bowl is, I put this one on Kyle. I was willing to forgive Kyle last Super Bowl. I said, you drew up the play to Emmanuel Sanders that was the game-winning play for the Super Bowl. Kyle schemed it up. Emmanuel Sanders was open. Jimmy overthrew. I put last Super Bowl on the defense. This one, I'm putting it on Kyle. Not Kyle Shanahan, the head coach, but Kyle Shanahan, the play caller, play designer. I felt that we were out coached. And that is an issue to me because I don't feel that there are many defensive coordinators that Kyle Shanahan should have an advantage over, especially with the players that he has.
Absolutely. And one last thing that I noticed in all the other, I've watched a lot of people talk about the Super Bowl. I've watched a lot of people break down plays, and I have a couple 49ers fans, DeWicki, Mikey, all the guys that I watched the Super Bowl with down at the bar, and they brought it up, and I had to shoot this down. A lot of people talking about that missed extra point. That wasn't a missed extra point. It was blocked. Okay, it was blocked. You can't. I heard a lot of people. A kicker has to make that extra. I'm like, they blocked it. It's not like there was nothing he could do about it. Once the ball leaves his foot, there's nothing he could do. So everybody, I saw a lot of analysts after the game. If they had just made that field goal, well, it got blocked. You got to blame the guys up front. You can't blame the kicker when the ball doesn't make it to the goalpost. You can't blame it on the kicker. So a lot of that is just people deflecting and people trying to find somebody to blame. And they're like, "Oh, we'll just blame the kicker." Well, no, you can't. You got to blame the line, and you got to blame and not to mention blocking a field goal is hard. That was a great play by the Chiefs. That was just a fluke play that happens. You can't put any blame on anybody for that.
The special teams has been an issue under the Kyle Shanahan era. That's just something that's a Kyle issue. Why? Because probably Kyle doesn't give a shit about special teams and says, "Look, just don't fumble me the ball, and we'll take care of it."
Well, when you're trying to reload coaching staff every year, I mean, something's got to give. And when you're getting
something that when we get into the future of the team, that's an issue that I see forthcoming. But I said on the show, this is why I like the way we do the show, because our show's not so narrative driven. We're not clickbaity. And I said, it's so funny because literally the defense gets to stop there. Jake Moody is a Super Bowl hero. He literally kicked the game-winning field goal of the Super Bowl. Right?
Yeah.
Jake Moody kicked the game-winning field goal of the Super Bowl. I literally said, when we broke down the blocked extra point, I said, I literally don't know what Jake Moody's supposed to do when two people are literally coming at his face unblocked. Not that they were blocked, but, to me, that's just so uneducatedly football. That's uneducated about football. Break down whether we should have had Robbie Gould, fine. You can make arguments about whether Jake Moody is going to be our kicker for the next 15 years. That's a different discussion. But to put that blocked extra point on Jake Moody, anybody who does that, I question your football IQ.
Absolutely. I said the same thing. I was like, you guys, you can't blame this guy. I understand. Hey, it was a tie game, and if you had that one extra point, guess what? Guess what? Pat Mahomes ain't going for. He's not going for a field goal to tie the game at the end. He's doing what he did in overtime. He's going to do that to you on that final drive. So, But yeah, I wanted to make sure we cleared that air because I saw it way too much on the big time networks of breaking down. Oh, it was that missed extra point. No, it wasn't. Okay, that was a minuscule part. Yes, it was a part, but it wasn't the part of breaking down the game. All right, let's go to the future of the 49ers because we touched on it, and really that's the important thing. I mean, you look back on it. There's too much Super Bowl history. There's too much football history to go back, and we all know losing the Super Bowl is devastating. Just ask the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, everybody thought they were going to be losing the Super Bowl is a bigger curse than winning it. So where do you see this the 49ers, what do you see the 49ers doing in the future to get from Super Bowl runner up to Super Bowl champion?
So ultimately, obviously it goes for defensive coordinator. I think that's the first thing that we addressed. Obviously, first priority list. I know everybody's throwing out Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, these type of names. The problem I feel that why you saw the defense regress this year is, truthfully, I don't believe Kyle felt that he had any in-house candidate. And so, fine, we go out and we hire Bill Belichick. So what are we going to do in a year when he's hired as a head coach? Oh, we hired Pete Carroll. Awesome. What are we going to do when he retires from football or, gets another head coaching job? Mike Vrabel, who actually, honestly, if ultimately the Niners are destined this season to have a one-and-done defensive coordinator again, Vrabel is the one that I want the most just because of what he's been able to do against the Chiefs. Because final thought on just the Super Bowl and the season in general is I feel like we're the 1980s Bengals. Where the 1980s Bengals probably think to themselves, hey, if we didn't go up against Joe Montana twice, we probably got 2 rings. As a 2020, 2020s Niner fan, I say, shit, we didn't go up against Patrick Mahomes twice, we probably got 2 rings. So, like we did in '94, Chris, as a Crygos fan, you know this very well. We went and got Dion. We went and got, Ken Norton, Gary Plummer, Richard Dent. We got these players with the specific mind of the goal this year is to beat the Dallas Cowboys, right? That's what it was in '94 when we went out and we spent all that money in free agency. This season has to be about beating the Kansas City Chiefs. Because I'm sorry, until proven otherwise, you just got to assume they're going to be right there in the Super Bowl game. Until proven otherwise. Regardless of what the regular season looks like, if Patrick Mahomes is in the playoffs, you'd be a fool not to bet that he'd at least be in the Super Bowl. Now, what does this team look like going forward? I do not see a way where we keep the nucleus of this team together, i.e., Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Trey Greenlaw, and we keep both Debo and Brandon Ayuk on the team, and CMC. I think ultimately, I hate this because I believe he's a better receiver than Debo. But ultimately, I think what this team is going to look like to build the best team, I think we're going to trade Brandon Ayuk, package pick number 31, whatever pick we get for Brandon Ayuk, I think we're trading up, and I think we're taking a tackle. It's going to be our right tackle, and then the heir apparent to Trent Williams whenever he decides to walk away. Defensively, health. I think, getting back Dre Greenlaw back, or maybe it's time to start thinking about moving on from him. He's only got 1 more year left in his contract. This is I feel torn because, like you said, Chris, history tells you Niners aren't going to win the Super Bowl this year. Right? That's what 58 years of Super Bowls tell you. Is that the only team The only player, let's be real, the only player that wins Super Bowls after they lose them is Tom Brady.
Yeah, pretty much.
The only man that's ever done it. But I have a very difficult time, like I did in 2020. I remember doing the preview show before the season and listing our starting lineup and saying, like, 85, the only player that was not on the starting lineup opening day of 2020 that was on the lineup in the Super Bowl was DeForest Buckner. I feel that it's very, very similar this year. So I have a problem telling you, Chris, it's going to be a rough year for the red and gold when I know majority of the team that lined up that was, 3 minutes and some odd seconds in the Super Bowl away from winning it. I have a hard time when most of that team's coming back to tell you that we don't have a shot to be there. But logically, I look at 58 years of history. I guess, if you tell us to become the third franchise to win the quest for, to have our sixth Super Bowl, looks like we got to beat history.
Yeah.
Ultimately, if you ask me to put my life savings on it, I'd say we win it in Levi's at 2026 with Super Bowl 60 coming in.
That would be great for you guys to do it at home. That'd be outstanding. Let me just throw this at. Let me throw this at you.
Yes.
Because here's my feeling on this. I feel like next year is the 49ers need to sell out next year. They need to sell out for a Super Bowl ring. Why? Because guess what? That Mr. Irrelevant tag on Brock Purdy, that's coming off soon. His contract is going to explode. And therefore, you need to use everything you can right now to win right now. You win next, because if you get one, that changes the entire world. That changes your entire world. If you sit there and go, well, we got to save money because we know we have to pay Brock Purdy, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Just go for it now. That would be my thing. Is is to see what they do in the offseason. If you're right, they trade Ayuk and they try to get bolster other things. That's a good sign for them. So
I believe so. I believe this year is about building the best team. Because I don't believe, let's be real, we're not going to get a quarterback that's going to be Patrick Mahomes. This season's about two things. Ultimately, do you believe Brock Purdy is the one? Which ultimately, luckily, we don't really have to decide till after this season, So is Brock Purdy a franchise quarterback that could win us a Super Bowl? I think we saw yes.
I think you saw. He's serviceable. He's serviceable as a quarterback. He's definitely. You get the right pieces around him. Yes, he can win. You can win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. But you can't do it unless the pieces. You gotta put the chess pieces on the board.
Yeah. I fully believe that. So ultimately, this year needs to be about building the best team around Brock Purdy. You say we have literally a quarterback that couldn't be any cheaper, Chris. Our quarterback could not be any cheaper.
Exactly, and that's my point. That was my point too.
You have to.
You got to sell out now while his contract is so low. Sell out. If you win a Super Bowl, you're going to pay him anyway. So I think Blog Talk's going to kick you off soon. So I want to thank you for coming on. Anytime the 49ers are doing something, we're all in. And so I just want to thank you for coming on and doing this. And just so you know, you are the first in the rebirth, as we're calling it right now, the fifth down rebirth. So always glad to have you, bud.
Anytime, brother. anytime, just hit me up, and I'd love to come you on. I'll talk to you about that sponsorship later, brother.
Outstanding. Yeah, I'm definitely down. So definitely. But thank you. All right, I'm gonna finish up here with as Blog Talk's probably gonna kick me off as it says episode ended. Yep, awesome. So we're live on YouTube. So let me just finish up. And obviously we had some guys come in. I highlighted it before. Snowman, thank you for jumping on. Of course, everybody, I was on Snowman's show, Snowman's Super Bowl preview. You heard me talk about Roger Craig. Because we talked about the Hall of Fame, and I talked about how no running back should be in until Roger Craig gets put in. So I did mention that. I want to highlight some of these. Mel, mi amor, I love you too, and we'll put all this up. Thank you for checking out the show. We always highlight comments. As long as if you comment, we put them up, and they don't have to be all of they don't have to be all praise. We show every comment on this program. We have since the start, and we will until it ends. So, all right, Snowman, still checking out the show. So thanks, Snowman, for checking us out. But last thoughts on the Super Bowl. First off, and I brought up the Roger Craig thing because I felt like Patrick Mahomes winning the MVP. I felt like he got the MVP because basically there was no one else to give it to. As I said in the beginning of the show, there wasn't really anything with this Super Bowl. There wasn't any point in this Super Bowl that I could point to and go, that's the play, that's the guy, that's the most valuable play. It really didn't exist. However, I feel like they dodged a bullet, and I feel like they just gave it to Patrick Mahomes, whereas they should have given it to. I feel like they should have given it to somebody else, and. You could name anybody on that defense, the interceptions. But here's why I harp on that, and here's why that's important. Why that's important is what I just brought up. And Snowman, you know this more than anybody. Roger Craig, and I don't know the year. I don't care. I believe it was 87, but it was Broncos 49ers Super Bowl. You could have given it to anybody on that offense. And Roger Craig had one of the best games when the game mattered. And then the 49ers blew the doors off and scored 50 some odd points. And it was a massacre. They gave the Super Bowl MVP to Joe Montana. Ask yourself this question. If Roger Craig gets the Super Bowl MVP there, and yes, what's that? Oh God, I got to do Roman numerals now. What's that? 24? Looks like 24. I don't know. I can't do Roman numerals. Was that 24? I thought it was 23. I thought it was Super Bowl 23. Because I know 25. 25 is Bills Giants. I know that. I know that for a fact. I think it was. I want to say it was the year before, but anyway, whatever year it was, the teams were Broncos, 49ers, and we know 55-10. We know that Joe Montana played great in that game. Roger Craig, if Roger Craig has a Super Bowl MVP on his rap sheet, he's an instant Hall of Famer, and he's in already. If he has a Super Bowl MVP, he's in the Hall of Fame already. And he's not. This is why I bring it up about Pat Mahomes winning. Yeah, Pat Mahomes has already won Super Bowl MVPs. He's already a shoo-in Hall of Famer. You give that to anybody else on the Chiefs, anybody else that deserved it, and it's not to say Pat Mahomes didn't deserve it or whatever. It's just saying there are other guys out there that you could have given that award to. You could have given that award. I believe Travis Kelce caught a touchdown. You give that to Travis Kelce, he's an instant Hall of Famer. I mean, you could argue whether he is or not right now, but he has it. It's a lock, done deal. That's what I'm saying about about giving the award to Pat Mahomes. I thought they bungled it there where they could have given it to somebody else and given them a shot in the arm. The other thing I want to bring up before we close out here, and of course YouTube exclusive. The other thing I want to bring up is the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't understand this. A lot of people are talking about the Kansas City Chiefs were Super Bowl champions. No. The Kansas City Chiefs were back-to-back Super Bowl champions. People seem to forget that. People seem to think like, oh, they were Super Bowl champions for this year. No, it's hard to win Super Bowls. It's even harder to go back-to-back. And the Kansas City Chiefs did that, and they are getting no credit for that. They are getting zero credit for being back-to-back Super Bowl champions. And I think my theory is it's because of the way the regular season played out. It's because the Chiefs weren't dominant in the regular season. The Chiefs weren't the number one seed in the AFC. They weren't. Look, you could say they weren't the number one seed. To me, they were always the biggest threat. They were always the biggest threat once they got in the playoffs. When they were in the playoffs, even when they were playing Miami in the wild card round, I said Kansas City's the biggest threat. That's the one you want. If you're in the NFC, that's the one you don't want to see in the Super Bowl. And the Kansas City Chiefs did what they had to do. But anyway, so that's the kind of thing that this is the kind of stuff that we do on this show. We're going to be doing a lot shorter shows. We're going to be doing a lot more program-based shows. I'll talk more about that later on. This one, we just wanted to do the Super Bowl. And as I said when he was on, and I will say this until the end, until I retire completely from doing shows. Anytime the 49ers are involved, anytime football's involved, we love having Niners Faithful on. Niners Faithful is great to talk to, and the only thing that sucks about doing a show like this, as opposed to the way we used to do shows, you would have heard Niners Faithful and I probably talk for about 2 or 3 hours doing all this about all the stuff that we needed to do. So I love talking to TJ. I love what he does over there. So anybody who watches this, anybody who's listening, check out Niners Faithful Radio. Look them up, listen to them. If you're a 49ers fan, if you're just a fan of football and hearing people who are passionate about football talk football, Niners Faithful Radio is your place to go, because they not only love their 49ers, but they love football, and they break down football the way it should be broken down. So much props to them. Love TJ for coming on the show. But we're going to get out of here. We're going to do it Thursday of this week. More Super Bowl recap. More Super Bowl. We're not backing down from the Super Bowl. Everybody who's listened to this show for 8 years knows the Super Bowl is more than just the game on the field. So on Thursday, we will have Cousin Brianna on the show, and she will break down the commercials, the halftime show, and all the other stuff. And also I have some other special topics to bring up with her, as we always do. So check out that on Thursday. Like, subscribe, comment. Comment on the show. We respond to everything. We love having interaction on the show. So we're gonna get that going. And with that, I will say goodbye for now. A great restart. And in the comic book terms, this is the rebirth of the Fifth Down Show. Glad to be back. Glad to be doing it. And we will talk to y'all next time. All right. Till then, onward, upward, and we'll talk to you later. But remember, wait, I don't know if I can still do this. No, I can't. All right. So with that, with that being said, we will get out of here and we'll talk to you next time.